Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we are back after a much-needed win over the Gold Coast Suns. As always, we'll give our thoughts on all of the biggest talking points from the game and the week, as well as building up another massive game, this time against Port Adelaide this Thursday night at Adelaide Oval. God, the big games, they just don't stop coming. I wouldn't mind an easy game, an easy win. But Lockie, before we get stuck into it all, I have to ask, how are you and how you're feeling a few days on from what was a pretty important win in the end?
Yeah, pretty bloody good, mate, for sure. I mean, yeah, like you say it, we need to have some easy wins here and there. This was one of those ones where, I mean, we were very confident, or at least I was very confident on the podcast last week leading into this one. And I felt very early in this game very confident. So it was a good viewing spectacle in that regard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's get straight into it. Let's get into Navy noise. And the first topic is key takeaways from the Gold Coast win. Lockie, what were your biggest points? Because I think going into this, we've had such a tough run. And as I sort of mentioned at the top of this episode, they're not stopping. They're continuing.
No.
Until the bye and probably straight after as well. This felt like a game where I know Gold Coast, coming off the back of a couple of big wins themselves, they were in form, but it really seemed at our home deck, one that we just simply had to win. So what were your key takeaways from this?
Yeah, 100%. That was the mindset that I had on the podcast last week where like I hate talking about games as being pivotal or, trying to take too much from certain games. But there was something about this one, knowing, like watching a lot of Gold Coast this year and everything that was coming into this game, if we could not get over the line against them, I would have been as down as probably I was a year ago on this podcast, to be honest. Because it just felt like everything should come together. And I feel like almost everything just did. Like, I don't even know where you want to start in terms of key takeaways, but so many individuals stepped up. A bunch of players had arguably their best game for us. The leaders stood up just all across the ground. I thought coaching has been something that we've been critical of at times. Now we've got a few week kind of span of saying, wow, there's some good decisions being made there. Like, there's a bunch. What's your key?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you don't necessarily have a real specific one, because I almost just wanted to talk about the important win and performance itself, because like you mentioned, we had our worst game of the season against Sydney, and we really just needed to see a response. And a part of me is getting a little bit annoyed of having to say that on the podcast. It feels like you have the Geelong game, the Collingwood loss. It's like, okay, boys need to bounce back, need to respond, need to learn from it. In every single one of our losses this year, the next week we've said, okay, how are we coming back out the next week and can we get the win? So I was just so happy that we finally did it again, even though it's frustrating. And it puts us back in the 8, which is, I know I don't want to get bogged down in the ladder and in where everything sits, because we know more than anyone, so much can happen from here till the end of the season. But it just puts you in such a better position heading into the back end of the season. I don't think it was a game where we could really afford to lose and afford slipping down further down at the pack, because this is really over the next few weeks where the ladder tends to really separate. And considering how close things are, we're a game away from, I think, third, couple of games, and all of a sudden you head down to the bottom of the ladder. So I think after our performances so far and looking at the ladder, for us to still make top 4, we can only really afford to lose 3 more games? I think to make it 7, which is what most teams end up losing, 7 for the season, still make top 4. Everything was really riding on this game, knowing it was such a winnable performance at home. And on top of the win, I just felt the performance itself just so important to build that confidence with the group, a little bit more cohesion now that we're getting some players back from injury. So that was really where I wanted to just lead off with it. How did you see 100%. That as far as a win? Not necessarily in isolation, but as far as the context of our season goes.
Well, you made a really good point that I was going to mention, which is about the injuries. Like, we've stressed that just because you have, your best guys out there doesn't necessarily mean they're just going to perform straight away, and they need time to get reps together and make it all click and everything. But just quietly, I feel like when you look at the guys that played, how many, even though we've still got a fair injury list, I feel like we're actually kind of running out of guys that you might think about as being best 22. At least that's how I'm feeling. Like, there's still some guys that would come back in, but we're getting closer, I think, to full strength. So that was another part where it's like, well, if we can't beat this Gold Coast team at Marvel after they've spent 2 weeks in Darwin, that's where I was at it, being like, wow, we're really not it this year, if that's the case. And it was just the complete opposite in terms of the entire performance.
No, I definitely agree. And as far as the injuries are concerned, probably the biggest worry heading into the game was around our midfield. That's where I was definitely seeing things, considering how bad a performance it was against Sydney. Really got touched up by them. Just our poorest midfield performance all season. And we know that as soon as you take a Walsh or Chera out of our midfield group, we don't have that perfect replacement, a guy who can add that movement around the stoppage. We look slow, certainly looked that way against Sydney. So my other big, I guess, key takeaway was just how good the midfield response was. And probably this ties in your point around the coaching, where we've been asking for a while to see something different, to try something new. What did you make of the few players that ran through there? I think Elijah was definitely one. God. You could throw in Chincotta, a bit of Zachy Williams. What did you make of the magnets getting thrown around in the midfield performance?
Yeah, we mentioned it 7 days ago on this show that those were exactly the moves that we wanted to see. Like, just the different things that Elijah brings. And it was either Elijah or Zach Williams were the two that stood out for me as, like, just obvious eye test things for that how slow as a midfield we looked last week, and not skillful, just getting the ball in these guys' hands that we trust kicking. Like, it just makes such a difference. Elijah was such a win with all that extra midfield time. And then obviously the Zach Williams wasn't a midfield move, but moving the magnets around just made the whole team feel so different.
And it was really just that pressure and intent from the start, which is something I jotted down in my what do you want to see last week. And I was very impressed with what I did see against Gold Coast, because it was and it wasn't just the tackles. You can look at certain stats, you can look at the numbers, do whatever you want, but it was the repeat efforts that I saw when, if they were breaking a tackle or it looked like they were getting out, the ball fumbles forward, we just kept attacking, kept going each and every contest. Knew it was never going to be easy for Gold Coast to have those easy possessions. And that just worked in our favor. We were creating turnover. We were getting the ball moving our way. And it was just nice to see that intent. And then when you do throw some other players in there, like an Elijah Hollands, who, again, he just keeps impressing against his old team as well, he would have been very pleased with that. Sometimes tough to see how players do react when they come up against the team they used to play for. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. I thought Zach Williams, when he was around the ball, was really great. And then
Me too.
Seeing a guy like Chincotta, who's been such a big asset in the last few weeks, playing that lockdown defensive role on the team's best small forward, for him to then move half forward and then tagging Tuke Miller, I mean, that is something that we did slightly float a fair few months ago, saying, is he someone that can maybe take over a Doc-like role, play a multitude of different positions, have some midfield time if we do need, because he was playing that way in the VFL. How did you see Chincotta's different role, and what are you thinking he can give us, I guess, for the rest of the season? Does he have a locked-in position for you? Where do you see his role going forward?
Wow, that's a really good question that I hadn't thought about the last bit. I mean, we knew that there was something happening at selection when obviously it felt like there was 8 defenders basically named, and it was like, okay, they're not all going to be lining up back there. So, I mean, I can't stress enough just, I think, the frustration that you and I shared a month ago, where it just felt like we weren't willing to try things. Like, it just felt like we were just, and I understand that too. Like, I don't want to be reactive when things aren't going well, but a quick little clap to the coaching team for trying these things out and then actually delivering. Chincotta's place in the team moving forward is very interesting. I don't have a good answer for that. I think even though I thought he was amazing and did a great job in that role, it's hard to see who else is going to make way for some of these guys like Cottrell and Chera when they do return.
No, I do agree. It's really tough. He could be someone that potentially makes way because as good as he's been in our defensive half, you add in a guy like Sard, a guy like Lockie Cowan, and structurally it's still probably the best we've seen it all year. And maybe there's an 100%. Element of Gold Coast not having that elite small forward that we didn't really have to worry about that. We didn't have to play that matchup. Plays a role in why we maybe are starting to say, does Chincotta even have a spot there? But it was just the way things set up and the transition was really good. And I don't really want to drop anyone from that back 6 or 7. Looking at every other position, it's still going to be really tough for him, which is ridiculous because over the last month, he's probably been in our top 5 best performers week in, week out. Whatever his role is, he's absolutely nailed it. But do we need that tagging kind of run with role going forward? Does that stop us somewhere else? I'm not sure. And I think while a Chincotta maybe isn't available, while a Matty Cottrell isn't available to be selected with his injury, I'm pretty happy to say, Chincotta, that's your spot for now. Take that role, be a bit more of that mid-forward connector. If we need to put you anywhere on the field, go for it. Maybe you can also help out a bit on the wing as well. Kind of happy for him to play that Doc Mr. Fix-It role until someone else is putting their hand up saying, I need to be in there and I have a specific role. He might not be there every single week, Chincotta, but I think it's a good problem to have if we're not sure if he is best 22, but God, every time he's in there, you couldn't be asking for anything more.
Yeah, extremely well said. It kind of brings me to a little point. I felt a little bit vindicated watching the Blue Board ratings show the other day and just talking about these, individual guys. And Pom did mention a guy like George Hewitt, where it's like, we love him. We know he's a great player, but it's getting to this stage where everyone has these specific roles they need to play. And with, what we've discussed about the midfield dynamic and those kind of things, I feel like there is going to come a stage where the pressure is on him for a place in this team, because Chincotta has kind of shown here, I think, an ability to do some of the things that we think George had historically been really good at. But maybe when we need to have, a place in the side for 1 week, I mean, this week coming up, someone like Zach Butters, I guess, is someone that we could look to try and shut down. Who would you have more confidence in? Would it be Hewitt or Chincotta to do that job right now? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I would definitely need a bit more of a sample size from Chincotta to feel super confident about what he can do in the midfield. But we often talk about, and I know I'm hot on this, it's what's your point of difference? What are you bringing? What's the upside in things? And that's probably the only negative conversation when you're talking about George Hewitt, because he kind of just is that inside midfielder. You know what you're going to get. He performs it well, but he doesn't offer really any versatility with that. And that's fine. Sometimes you can just have those guys that have their simple role and it's perfect. And George Hewitt is going to get plenty of games in this team. Come finals time where you need heavy contested ball, I see him there. But I like your discussion in the preseason comparing him and Kennedy, and why you were saying maybe Kennedy has that edge over him for the rest of the season because he can do other things. He's better overhead. He can go forward. He can kick goals. He is a little bit more versatile. Now you're throwing in a guy like Chincotta. You've got Elijah coming through there as well. Has to come back in. These guys are offering multiple different roles. If they're not performing in one area, they can do something else. And if these guys are also now starting to tread on Hewitt's toes as far as that inside midfield is concerned, and maybe we start to look better because we've got more movement around the ball with an Elijah Hollands, those sort of things. What's the upside? Where are we looking to take this list? If Cripper's still in there as the inside ball, how many of those players do we need? If Kennedy's performing better, it's a positive discussion because
hugely positive.
we're saying guys are performing well. Where's the improvement? How can we get better? And again, it's just a good problem to have. So I'm interested to know the listeners' thoughts. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, let us know your thoughts on the midfield balance and where you see, I guess, do you see Elijah getting a lot more of a run in there? Do you like what you're seeing from Chincotta? And where do you see him moving forward? And then that George Hewitt debate. Neither of us are saying drop the man, but going forward, when we're trying to go towards a premiership, do we need someone in there that has that little bit of extra versatility? It's definitely an interesting conversational piece. But with that, Lockie, what do you have any other main takeaways from that victory?
Yeah, I think it's worth calling out just how well the defense stood up in this one. We have felt at times this season just some shakiness in our defense and not necessarily feeling that confidence in them all as a group as we had in previous years. And I just felt like this game just showed like the trust that they all have in each other, the specific roles that they all play, but also the versatility really of all of them. Like, I don't know, it's just so different to when you have like someone like Lewis Young in the team who has strengths, but then you look at these guys and it's like, wow, they can all defend, all attack, but seemingly they can all be interceptors. Like, it's just an amazing situation that we've landed in with this group now.
Yeah, I think it was one of our best defensive performances. The midfield brought the heat. The forward line were bringing pressure as well. But I agree, it might be the best makeup that we actually do have right now for all the reasons you said. I loved that these guys can play tall and take those intercepts and then get the game moving. Guy like Lockie Cowan was absolutely enormous for us in the way he moves the ball, wanting to take the game on. But then all of these players can play a little bit smaller. Gov, Kemp, Cowan, they can do the stuff on the ground as well. And this is something that when we are starting to play some of these better teams, obviously we've got Port coming up this week. Their forward line doesn't necessarily scare me a lot as far as the individual players, but we know how strong their midfield is. So they're going to get opportunities. So we need to be structuring up perfectly. And then we need to be able to then change that defense to attack. And when this was one of our best transition games from defensive 50, I think that's so important going forward. And you need to see it happen. You need that continuity and you need the confidence from it. So I'm very pleased with what we were able to see, knowing how big this game against Port is this week.
100%. And I try and, as you rightly said before, small sample size, we need to see lots of these things. But this, to me, broadened the gap even further of Marchbank's place in this team.
Yeah.
Like, what Cowan showed here of what he can do on both sides, it's like, yeah, man, I want to see this guy in the team rest of the season.
No, I agree. Probably my last key takeaway, which kind of flows well as we start to move towards looking at this Port Adelaide game. Speaking of sample size, was just Zach Williams. My goodness. All of a sudden, we throw the man forward and he looks like an absolute superstar, kicks 4 goals, incredible performance. Now, obviously, we've only really had 2 games of this. I've got 1,000 questions I want to ask on it. The first one I'm going to ask is this just a case of, wow, what a performance. You've thrown this guy into a position he hasn't played much of, and it's just how good Zach Williams is? Or is it a bit of an indictment on some of our small forwards, guys like Durden, guys like Fantasia, that we've given them a lot of opportunities so far? This is meant to be their role. They've given 0 output, and this guy hasn't just beaten them in 1.5 games, but he's absolutely monstered them.
Honestly, I think it is both. I definitely need to reset my expectations for next week and not expect him to kick the 4. But you're exactly right. It feels like such a simple role that he had to play in this one, and just did it perfectly. And I want them to persist with it. And I don't want to see us messing with it. Like, I've been very critical of even just the amount of guys playing this kind of like small forward role. but he's kind of different because he can. I don't know. He just brings more than those guys. Like he's a bit bigger to be able to apply more tackle pressure, and if he gets up the ground a little bit, ball in hand, we have massive faith in him. And I guess you could say that his time in defence has helped him, understand. I don't know. Like it felt like he always knew where the ball was going to drop when it was coming in. Like he was just getting in the right spots. And man, I'm just so happy for him. It was so good to see how happy he was, and honestly, probably shocked at how well he played in himself.
Yeah, getting that one goal early definitely helps the confidence levels boost, but it was just his energy and intent around the ball, around everything that got me excited. I mean, how many times on this podcast have we said, I just want someone in the forward line that when they win the footy, their first instinct, the first thing that they think is, where are the goals? And I'm going for them.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily a hungry or selfish thing, but too many times our small forwards, who's the better option? I need to find a better option. It's like, you've got the time and space. You can hit this. Go for it and back yourself in. So I love that seems like Zach Williams' MO right now. And talking about how can we improve this front half, every other line at the moment feels pretty perfect as far as most of the personnel out there. We kind of know to 90% what the best mix is and how things should fit, but the front half's been the problem through the injuries, through whatever you want to say. It's just not right. And getting a guy like Zach Williams, a better ball user around it, a guy who can push up if you need, play as a bit of an extra midfielder without having to have that tank if you need to. Losing Cottrell, you need that kind of connector. Well, he's better than Fantasia at Durden in that role. He seems better at kicking goals himself from again, small sample size. I don't want to go over the top and act like he's going to be our new mid-size small forward because we just don't know. That is the fact of things right now. But everything else I'm seeing, I'm liking. And just that, again, that word versatility, the different roles that he can play in there, it's exciting. And a bit of leadership maybe, because I know he doesn't necessarily know that role, but just having played games of football, knowing how to win the football, knowing where to be, really, I think that can hopefully go a long way.
You make a very good point. I definitely have more questions than answers on the forward line now. Like it just is even more. I'm even more unsure personnel wise, and just the structure of what we need in there. Because we had obviously Fogarty came back in. Awesome. No one is denying that there's a place for him in this team. So then once you're saying that you've got the big guys and Fogarty's are locked, it's like there's like 10 guys that are putting their hand up for just a few spots in that forward line. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see how it plays out, and by the time finals comes, where that is all at.
Absolutely. It is very exciting. So let's turn to the votes, Lockie. Let's wrap this game up, put it in the rearview mirror, and then start to look towards the Port Adelaide game. It's the navy blue corner, blue bagger, badge of honor. Give me your 3, 2, 1. And those watching, those listening, firstly, give us any other takeaways you do have. Let us know what you thought on all the big discussion points there. What do you think of Zach Williams in the forward line, and how good do you think he can be for us this year? And drop your votes as well. 3 for best on ground, 2 for the player that performed the most above what we expect of them and their role, and then number 1 vote for whoever you want for whatever reason. Drop them in the comments here at YouTube. And if you're listening in audio form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Links will be in the description in the show notes. You cannot miss them. Lockie, your votes. It's tough. It's a tough week.
I struggled with this, particularly because
good reasons.
Exactly. Particularly because guys stood up. I have to go with 3 for Cripper. Just a pure Patrick Cripps game in all regards. We don't need to talk about him too much. I'm giving 2 to Cowan because I think, we've liked what we've seen from him at stages this year in the kind of limited opportunities, and he just went above and beyond in this one to a point where I'm just like, lock this back line in. If everyone's healthy, let's just get continuity in this group. I have to give Williams a vote. You can't kick 4 like that and not get a vote. Even though there's a few others I'd like to give 1 to, he gets my 1.
No, very, very similar votes. Obviously, for 3 for Paddy Cripps. Just perfect performance. Got everything driving from the midfield. Classy from him as always. 2 was the toughest. I will skip it for now. I'll say my one was also Zach Williams. Tossing up between giving him the 4-goal performance. It was hard not to, but in the end, my 2 votes went to Tom de Koning because
that was my other
it's
one.
a big topic, that the ruck situation. Do we go with 2? Are we better with 1? If we do have one ruckman, is it Pito? Is it de Koning? After a few probably quiet weeks and a tough opponent in Big Witsy, it's not an easy ruck battle. Thought he was clearly the winner by the Flemington Straight and more, to be honest. He was terrific for us. Got things moving for us. Makes this discussion even tougher on the big ruck dilemma and where we go with this. But in this performance, because there was still so many question marks around it and what he was able to do, he gets my 2 votes. But Lockie, let's go straight to Grill the Corner, because the people have come in droves for questions to put us in the hot seat. If you want to get your questions in each and every week, make sure you head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Twitter and Instagram is where we chuck them out. Normally, it's on a Monday or a Tuesday. So if you follow along, you'll never miss it at all. What have the people asked us this week, Lockie?
We've got some quality in here, so I'll hit you with them. Oh, very interesting. We've kind of touched on a lot of these, so I'm keen for you to get off the fence as you always do. We'll start with this one from Jess Orico. Do you guys think Chincotta gets JHF, or will he move around to the most damaging mid? Or, I guess, even more broader, do you think that Chincotta will continue with this kind of same role this week?
I like the last question first. I think he will.
Yep.
I can't see us chucking him back in defense, because I think, as you mentioned, the rest of the squad seem to kind of have those roles out at the moment. They've got a decent couple of small forwards in there, particularly Rioli, but I don't know. I feel like we don't need to worry about that with guys like Sard that can hurt you the other way. Use it as an advantage if we do feel like we need to lock down, try to make them defend and worry about us. And I don't know, why not try and see how this is working while everything else is going okay? As far as who he should tag, I don't mind the idea of Horn Francis. He probably wasn't the one I initially thought of, because guys like Butters and Rosie are, I guess, a bit more influential ahead of the ball. But I mean, Horn Francis is tougher, and he is someone that you do need to shut down, that you do need to corral a little bit. Maybe that's a better battle, considering he's a little bit of that stronger player that might suit a guy like Chincotta. So yeah, I think I'd say try that and see how it goes. I'm almost also a little bit excited to see if we try him more as just a straight half forward, see what he can conjure up being that rather than being so defensive. Where are you kind of seeing things at the moment, Lockie? I tried not to fence it too much on that, but it is a really hard one, because I'm not sure I've got a definitive point of view just yet.
Yeah, no, I don't really either. I think Jess makes a really good point, and it definitely could be Horn Francis. I hope that we do persist with it. I think this year, not just in our games, but the role of tagging has shown that it not only can you nullify the direct impact of the player that you're tagging, but how it affects the team structurally as well. So you take away one kind of key part, and that also limits a bunch of the people that they enable, if that makes sense. I felt like the Sydney game for us was a big example of that. It wasn't just kind of Walsh going out of it. It kind of felt like it brought everybody down. So I'm not sure who that is for Port, because they all, the mids that we've talked about all have kind of, they're quite similar, I think, in a lot of regards. They're all, so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, overall, I hope that we do go put someone to see if we can disrupt that structure.
Absolutely.
Interesting from Harrison here. Do you think the wet weather will impact our fast start against Port? Which is becoming quite a theme, the fast starts from us.
Yeah, I definitely love the fast start, because it was hard to know what Carlton was normally stepping out onto the field. Is it going to be the one that doesn't rock up for a half a footy and then all of a sudden has a massive run home? Or is it the one that starts and then disappears? Whereas feels like we're a little bit better at this now, a little bit more consistent so far this season, even if there are a couple of hiccups here and there. And I don't know. I feel like it's just going to be a close game regardless, even if we do get a little bit of a jump, given how good Port Adelaide are. So many of these games now, you look at the ladder and I don't know, from even first to like 11th, 12th, they're all teams that can beat each other on their day. It's just so tight. There's not a lot separating these teams. So whether the wet weather plays a role or not, I'm not sure, because in my head, I don't see this being a game that we can really go out with a 5-goal lead and just keep them at arm's distance all game. It seems like a game against Port Adelaide will just be a bit of a slog regardless of the weather. So that's where I'm going to sit with that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's tough fixturing that we had to go and play Sydney up there, and now we have to go and get them over in Adelaide. So I think the ladder is lying a fair bit at the moment. Like, I don't know. I hate to be that guy who is always a hater on this team, but Essendon, I am just not impressed by at all, and I think we should definitely be going in as favourites against them next week. They're sitting above Port Adelaide on the ladder, who I rate so much higher in terms of how scared I am about going up against them. So, yeah, I guess it'll be, if we don't get that fast start, I'll be like, oh no, it feels like a bad sign, because that's been our one wood. But yeah, let's see. This is an interesting one, because we've spoken a bit about this in the episode. So this is from MK76. We know Voss is a great leader. However, he has shown that tactically on game day, it's a weakness in his armour. Will he be able to find another level, or can we get away with it with the right assistants around him? It's my only concern with the ladder. My only concern with the ladder is assistants will be poached. So do you have any thoughts on the tactics part, or just coaching right at the moment?
It is something that we've discussed quite a bit, and I still don't think it's perfect. I think there's still clearly room to grow and things that we can adjust, but I don't know. Maybe it's not the week that I'm feeling that because of the adjustments I saw. We've been calling out to see different things in the midfield, in the forward line. Just try something different, because doing the same thing and getting the same result is just not what I want to see. I want to see us try different things and evolve the game plan. So I don't know. There's still a degree of how well does Vossi adjust and co. That's kind of my thing at this stage. When things are going well in game, it's perfect. Soon as the other team seems to get the upper hand, we kind of struggle to wrestle back that momentum. And until it kind of stops happening so frequently, then I don't think we can say that we have overcome this. And even in the Gold Coast game, never seemed as if Gold Coast had wrestled that back. I felt like we were in control regardless of the scoreboard pretty much the entire game. That's how I definitely saw it. As far as the will they be poached and how important is that, I think it's clear that Ash Hansen has a massive role on our structure and game plan. So if he is to go, it probably is a bit of a dagger, but I think you could almost say that about most teams right now, that their assistants play a vital role in things. So I don't know. It's a really tough question to answer. I'm trying my hardest not to fence it, because I do think it's a massive issue. I do think it is a tough and a poor thing if we are to start losing these guys. But I don't know. You bring success. Some of these coaches will become head coaches. Every single team has to deal with that. It's about trying to build everything else around that, so you can almost plug and play the next best coach. But I don't know. It is still a deficiency, and Vossi does have a lot of work to do on this, because I think, like we said a couple of weeks ago, until we truly stop seeing all the problems that we know are there that continue to persist, we can't say that we've completely fixed them all.
And let's finish off the grilling with one from our good friend Tim Gigantor. And I couldn't agree with this statement anymore. Such a confusing year so far. So is the Carlton glass half full or half empty? So I guess the way that I want to give a spin on this question as well for you, we took a bit of a stop and check last week before this game, and kind of checks where we were feeling about the team generally. Does a performance like last week impact that at all for you? Where are you at right now, broader picture?
Yeah, I'm still very, very positive on things. And we needed this result against Gold Coast to really keep things ticking along. These next 2 weeks before the bye will probably tell me more. So I'll probably fence it slightly and I still need to see more, because if we lose both of these games, then you're really back down and it's going to be tough to make top 4 from that. But look, we're clearly not firing on all cylinders. We're not at our peak right now. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that means we're timing it all beautifully and we're just going to a better way of last season, because we've banked the wins and we're not in such a poor position. After the bye, we're just going to, it's all going to click and we're just going to have this beautiful run home. The pessimistic glass half empty side says maybe it won't all click and maybe we will just be a team that's to a degree making up the numbers in that top 8 and it's not our year to truly contend. But I don't know. I think regardless of the form and how we are playing at the top end, there's enough talent in this team to really attack finals and be that true top contender. No team apart from Sydney right now really scares me. And even Sydney, I don't think that they're perfect. And part of me thinks if they peak too early, are they playing? Do they have another level they can go to? I still think they're going to be a top 4 team and a contender, but I still think they're a beatable team. We get them down in Melbourne and I think we can do the business. So it's, right now I see us as a 3 to 8 as far as a ladder position, but we've just got the quality to get it done. It's just a matter of how we can get it sorted. And I don't know, you compare us to last season and the position we are on the ladder, the wins we've been able to bank, the run home that we've got as well. You're able to split the difference in the next 2 or get 2 wins. And all of a sudden, after the bye, we're in an incredible position. Maybe we start to get Chera back into this team. We're able to stay healthy. And then you're going from, are we a just top 8 to, we're top 4 and we're winning this thing. So I'm very, very, very positive on what I'm seeing right now.
Very aligned as always, except I'm a 2 to 8 because you nailed exactly what I was going to say, which is there is no one apart from Sydney that you would say is definitively better than us at this stage. Every team has given you reason to think why they're not. Who is the second most likely to win the flag right now?
Could be anyone. It could be anyone. Exactly. And I think we've spoken quite a bit about, our tough fixture and what it's not just been about who we've played, but it's when we play them. And I've been trying to find where I found this, and I finally have searched it up on my laptop to get it. And obviously it's the great man himself, Big Sir Swamp Thing on Twitter has got this for us. And he's talked about that this is the 3rd time in the past 5 weeks that Carlton has played a team versus the side sitting on top of the ladder, which is insane. Round 6, it was GWS. 7, it was Geelong. And then obviously he's talking about the Sydney in round 10. And the tough draw we've had, 5 of the last 7 have been with sides who are in the top 4 as well. Freo and Melbourne have been in there. So it's insane to me that we've been playing so many of these big teams and tough teams so far. We've had clearly one of the hardest runs this season. We said that we've had the hardest by far when comparing the other teams. And for us to still get the results we have, battling the injury in this hardest part, all of a sudden Collingwood get a few injuries and the media are saying, oh, poor Collingwood, they try so hard, they're doing so well. We never seem to get the sympathy. Whether I care too much about that or not, who knows? But just for us to be in this position right now, having this tough run, to do it, to get through it, I mean, it just tells you the resilience of this squad. And maybe when we finally start to open up and play some easier teams and it's not a slogfest every single week after week after week, you don't know what toll that takes on those players. So I'm very bullish about the rest of this season. But let's turn the attention, Lockie, to the game against Port. we've kind of meandered around it a little bit. So let's get stuck in. And the biggest thing I want to talk about in the blueprint to victory before we talk selection and what do you want to see, because it was a big talking point out of the week, out of the game, and it's the ruck influence is what I want to discuss. Now, there's been a lot of chatter about the ruck setup this season. What are we better with? Is it one ruck? Is it two ruck? So far, Lockie, I want to throw this to you.
Do it.
Having one main ruck, which has been TDK every single time, with Harry pinch hitting in there, we have won 5 games. We have not lost any. And our turnover game, which everyone loves to talk about, it's 2024, Lockie. Turnover is where you win the flag. It's clearly looked a lot better. And then when you look at the stats, as far as the points of turnover differential with one ruck, we are currently plus 131 points. Whereas you look at the flip side, you're looking at Pitternet being in the team. We're playing the 2 rucks. We've won 2 out of 4 compared to the 5 and Zip. Now, yes, our contested side has improved, but looking at the turnover differential, it's negative 32. So that is negative 32 compared to the one ruck system, giving you the 131 in the positive. I guess with that all being said, Lockie, is it as simple as we're better with one ruck and that ruck should be TDK?
Oh, I want to give a simple answer to your simple question, but I can't. The sample size here is growing, and there will come to a time where it's too definitive, I guess, not to believe it. So I guess well then I'll put it back to you. Why then do you think? My assumption would be that if Pitternet was good this week, Voss would be bringing him straight back in. Would you agree with that?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I'm not certain. I mean, Vossi, it feels like when they're fit, he wants them both in there.
Yeah.
Is that the best thing?
I'm not saying whether it's good or not. I'm just saying I have a feeling that the coaching staff would still be believers of that system.
I think so. I mean, my kind of point around this, because I've seen it everywhere right now, is, wow, we look so much better. Look at this. We've never lost when we've just played TDK this season. We're clearly better. Look at us. We're winning games, Lockie. But I just think I feel like that's so surface level, which is not to just shit on anyone that has that opinion, because I think I still tend to agree that we probably should just play the one ruck. But, I mean, look at who we've played, Lockie, when we've had the one ruck versus the 2. I would say all our toughest games this season, all the hardest opposition in the hardest run, shorter gaps in between the games, we've been playing with the 2. So I don't think you can just sit here and say all of that comes down to the fact that we have played a guy like Pitternet in this team as well. That's ridiculous. I mean, look again, all of a sudden you're playing with Sard again. You've got Fogarty. Turnover game looks good. Forward pressure looks good. It's just not as simple as that. Our hardest injury run has been when we've also had Pitternet in there, playing the toughest teams. It's still too small a sample size until I get to see Pitto in this team with a fit forward line, a fit back line, all the best players out there. I don't think you can just categorically say we're so much better when we just play the one ruck, particularly when he was in there with a matchup like a Max Gawn. I think the 2 rucks were so much better for us and what they were what the output was of everyone else around them because of wearing down a guy like Gawn. So I'm slightly fence sitting, but I think there's going to be times where we're going to need the 2 rucks, particularly you look at finals and how contested a game style that is. But again, right now, I'm probably just happy to run with the one ruck and see how that goes, because, clearly the turnover game does look better. But I don't know if you can just flat out say it's because of one player on the field. Where are you kind of seeing the arguments at play right now?
I mean, I want to keep asking you questions because I've been thinking about this all week, so I want to know from you. Do you think that what you've described there is actually a winning formula of sometimes playing 2, sometimes playing 1? Because like I've spoken so much about the continuity piece and all of that, and I wonder whether that is our best way to be a great team of constantly changing it up, because I can't imagine that it's simple for the mids to go rucking between the two, because it feels like the midfield operates so differently depending on who's out there.
It's interesting. I wonder if the ruck with a guy like De Koning, who's a lot better at ground level, acts as a definitely more of a midfielder than a guy like Pito. When you don't have one of Chera or Walsh out there, is that when we really need better ground ball getters and users around the stoppage? Whereas if we don't have Chera, playing Pito just kind of slows our movement down. It goes to a bit more of that contested side, and we do struggle. It's tough. I like the continuity piece because I think cohesion and chemistry is something that really does need to be built. We haven't had it this year. We rarely have gone into the next game and said, wow, same team, run it again, boys. How good's this? There's always been an injury, or there's been someone that has finally come back and is fit that we're crying out for in this team. And I've tried to do a bit more listening and researching around how much of an important thing cohesion is. And I was listening to the Redmen TV at Liverpool, as I always bring up. And one of the guys was talking about this and talking to one of Liverpool's assistant managers who's been the big tactical genius. And he himself was saying, I've been listening to podcasts, and I think it was out of Michigan in America, where they were talking about how much continuity is important and having the same guys out there learning. And one of the things I sort of took away from the discussion was, it's clearly so important because it's about thinking out on the field. And if you're having to think about things because you don't know where X player is going to be because you're not playing with him every single week, you're not training, you don't know the movements, you don't know these instinctive things. If you're having to think out on the field, you're already so many steps behind because you should have everything as that instinct. You should know immediately, I've got the ball, he's here, let's go. You don't even have to look because things move so fast. If the other team are on top of it, if the other team have that chemistry and you've got the ball and now you're thinking, you've lost the game. You're just so far behind things out there. So I think that there is an element of this that maybe we do need to just pick one, stick with it and go. But I don't know. I was reading more on it this week, and part of me does think when you go towards finals footy, we know how strong and contested that is. Yep. Do we need bigger bodies around it? I don't know. But right now, I want to see De Koning against these bigger ruckmen. I want to see him against a Max Gawn. Part of me wishes we could just play Melbourne and have the result not matter, because I don't want to deal with playing good sides again. But just to see if we do have those performances. And there's also that opportunity cost that you always love talking about. It's not just having Pito out there and other things working, but all of a sudden someone else is going away. So what is that? But weirdly, I think if it was asking me leading into this week, if you could just have one of De Koning and one of Pitternet out there, I probably would have said, let's just run with Pito because our midfield looks better when he's in there. We've looked average with De Koning in there. So I think there's more to this conversation than just it's De Koning or it's De Koning and Pito, because we haven't just seen Pitternet as the one ruck right now. I guess, do you want just one ruck? Do you think that we can fiddle with it as we continue? I know you've been throwing all the questions at me, but I do really want to know where your brain is sitting with this. And everyone else watching and listening to this, drop your thoughts in the comments right now on YouTube, because I don't think it's as simple as this is the perfect thing right now. I've still got so many more questions than answers. So I want to know what the Carlton faithful are thinking right now.
So do I. I'm consuming a lot of takes on this because it's, I mean, I feel like we mentioned this. This has been the core plot line of this entire podcast for the last 5 seasons is this debate. And I always just wonder the impact of your ruckman in the ruck contest and how important that actually is to winning. And I flip-flop on my opinion on that. So I think we are aligned right now that if see, I don't know. I genuinely changed my mind so much. If Pito was healthy this week, I would say play him in the twos and let's persist with this for now while it's working. But yeah, I was also being a bit of a devil's advocate before because I am massive on I do not want the Coning getting just beaten up for the next 12 weeks and then go into finals and be like, all right, assuming you're fresh then. Like, no, we want to manage our players more smartly than that. So even though I love the continuity part, I hope that we don't do that. And I hope that we do make sure that we're right for finals.
Yeah, no, I think we're very aligned because I agree. Right now, it's just DeConing, you play. Even if Pito's there, I want to see this for a little bit like we did earlier this season. But I think just to write off the stats of turnover, the stats of wins and losses, and use that as your one argument. I just think that's there's not enough substance to it because we have not seen the two rucks work when everything else around them is at peak. Whereas DeConing has had the opportunity to have our best defensive players transitioning the ball through, the best forward front half pressure. Probably the only other part of this argument that maybe steers it better towards a one ruck system is right now, I'm not sure our forward line has functioned its best with DeConing in there. I'm still not sure the three tall forwards work. Right now, we're still not functioning amazingly with two big talls down there. We feel like we still flood the space a little bit too much. Like our forward entries with the Gold Coast game weren't amazing. Is that because there's too many players down there? What are the problems around our forward structure? And is throwing a third tall in there, is that the right move? I'm not certain, but I'm also not certain if we go down the one ruck route that, at times Cripper and Kennedy and these players are taking the ruck. I saw Harry, obviously, we know he's that other guy. I'm still not sure that's the right move. So what is it? Is there, and I'm trying to look more towards next season and beyond. Is there another player that needs to either evolve, develop, or bring in that is a bit more of that third marking tall Jack Martin-esque, but is a little taller, can pinch hit in the ruck, that isn't as, I guess, stationary as a DeConing is, to use that argument. But we're going to keep having this discussion, so I'm excited to see more sample size, Lockie. It's the buzzword of the episode, but
it's true.
We definitely need it. We need it.
Oh, we're never going to get an answer, are we? We're 5 years into this shit, and we're just as confused as we were when it was Cruiser and I don't know who else was rolling around in 2020.
God, I think it was Andy Phillips potentially still slugging away. Was he still there? Who knows? But let's move on to team selection. This is normally a big debate, a big discussion piece. So again, I'm throwing it out to the listeners, to the viewers. Give us your team selection this week. Who's in, who's out? Give us the reasons. If you're listening in audio form, go to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. DM us, tweet at us. Very keen to discuss this further. But I don't know. My changes are very simple this week, Lockie. So I want to know yours. Who's coming in? Who's coming out? Because, mate, injury report dropped. It's looking pretty good. There has not been a mystery injury this week. It's more... Okay, Motlop, you still seem good to go. And I think Marchbank's the only one that they're saying is okay to play this week. Obviously, we're saying he's in the VFL, but is there anyone that is fit and firing to go that you are looking to bring in to this 23?
I'm going to fence sit a bit on the sub, but I don't want to bring anyone into the best 22. I think continuity... a five disposal game in the VFL for me. I didn't watch the game. I know others would have. So let us know if there's other colour to that you want to add. But that to me isn't worthy of dropping someone like Fantasia, who I thought had one of his better games. But the sub is the more interesting part to me.
I love every single second of that because, again, we're just very aligned. I almost have no changes this week. Yeah. Because, I think Motlop, as much as I kind of called for him to come in last week, all of a sudden Zach Williams steps up, and I do want to see just that continuity piece. I want to see a team that performed pretty, like they weren't perfect. There was still a lot of issues out there, but everyone kind of had their moments. Fantasia's still, he's hanging on by a thread, but he has those few beautiful inside 50s that you go, okay, at least you're offering something. Previously, there was nothing to write home about when we came into this podcast. There was no positives. I saw a few. I want Motlop to make sure he's fit and healthy, make sure his form starts to tick over. He would have been on managed minutes in the VFL. I'll put my hand up and say I didn't see any seconds of that game. I don't know a lot more than just trying to read little match reports, seeing the stats.
Same.
I want to give him another week. They're traveling. Why not save him for Essendon or save him for after the bye? Because we said last week in our big injury discussion, we don't want to rush guys back, even if they are fit to go. Are they match fit? Have they had the minutes under their belt? Motlop's a guy that has not played a game of AFL football so far this year. I just want a little bit more touch before he comes in. So I agree. It's around this sub. Do we go Jack Carroll again? He's had a few weeks where he's had a half of footy at least because we've had injuries. Thank God this week we could finally use a bit more of a tactical sub rather than it being injury forced. True. But I agree. I'm not sure you do. But looking at the rest of the guys that are available, I don't believe there's someone I would bring into the squad that isn't playing to take over that role. But weirdly, I don't want him in the team, which is not me just bashing him. But I don't think there's anyone to take out. And maybe it is a George Hewitt. Maybe it's one of those inside midfielders. However, does that mean you're losing Elijah Hollins playing in the midfield? I'm not sure. Do you have any candidates you want to throw out there for a potential sub that's either currently playing in the VFL or that could come out of the 22 and be that sub?
Well, I guess another avenue that people go with this, and I'm not really sure your opinion on it, so I'd like to hear it. Like, I don't necessarily want to either make Binns the sub again or debut another guy as the sub. But if I was going to bring someone in to debut, like a Moira or a Wilson or something, which I don't love this idea, but just hypothetically bringing in someone really fresh, there isn't someone that I'd want to demote to sub either. So it doesn't really feel right either way. Like to play Binns a full game, for example, this week doesn't feel right. To make him the sub again doesn't feel right.
No, I kind of agree. There's no one I necessarily want to take out unless it's Fantasia for Motlop. But I feel as if that's slightly premature. And if we are to say move Fantasia completely out of this team, no one you can kind of bring in is playing his role except for Motlop. Like you bring in a Binns, I don't think that's the right move. The only player that excites me as a sub because of what they offer when you bring them on in the versatility that we talk about, the impact is Chincotta, but there's no way in hell I want to demote him. So I think we're unfortunately in this piece where unless you are bringing in a Binns or maybe debuting a Billy Wilson, you kind of have to play Carroll as the sub. But I don't know. Right now, I don't love the idea of him continually not getting enough development, not getting that confidence because he's not playing great when he comes on. And I'm not saying it's his fault. He's not getting that continuity we're talking about. But let's have this discussion. If he is to come in, whoever you make the sub, don't worry about that. Where do you want to see Carroll's role? And is that a net positive?
Exactly. I think it has to be. I don't want to just be playing him out of position. I think it has to be as a centre bounce midfielder, which means it would probably have to be Hewitt, which I'm just not going to do.
Yeah, I think I'm like you right now. I'm saying, unfortunately, we don't have the players fit that could probably be that sub. Like guys that could potentially come in right now. Like obviously Chera comes in and then who knows, maybe Chincotta does become the sub and that's looking a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just is Fantasia the sub something? I don't want to look at that. I don't think that's a thing. So yeah, right now, just roll the team back for the first time, potentially this season, first time in a long time. Let's just let's pick the exact same team, exact same roles, And maybe we look at this in a week's time and someone else will bob up in the 2s and say, okay, no, I'm going to be the sub. I'm going to get into this 22. I'm happy to leave it as is.
And I don't know if you're a believer of these kind of things, but I just want to say, I think I like giving Fantasia a go against his old team at Adelaide Oval as well. I think with what he did last week, I think he's earned at least one more week to see if he can get into that form that maybe we were hoping we could see from him against his old team.
Absolutely. Now we head towards another big key component of the blueprint to victory. It is, of course, what do you want to see? Everyone knows we want the win, Lockie. But what are those little specific things? Do you have any fun, wild predictions? What, at the end of this game, do you want to see on your little notebook, on your clipboard, that you can sit there with your beautiful permanent marker and just tick her off at the end of it? It doesn't have to stay on for weeks on end. You can finally remove it and say, boys, we absolutely nailed it. And again, those watching, I want to get this discussion going. I'll be in there in the comments as well, talking about what do we want to see and talking about it all. If you're in audio form at Navy Blue Corner, I'll keep saying it until I'm getting these messages, until I don't have to. You know where they are. Links are in the show notes and description. It's very easy. Lockie, what are those little things? What are those little elements that you want to see that will lead to that victory?
Were you trying to subconsciously steer me towards something? Because I wasn't thinking about this thing, and now it's planted. And do you know what it is?
I have no idea, because I'll be honest, I was more padding slightly in the sense of I have no idea what I want now.
So I thought you were steering me towards something.
No, I was just giving myself more time more than anything else. You think I'm thinking about anyone else except for me? That'd be very Lockie. We're not going there.
That's true. That's true. I thought you were thinking about that hashtag 75.
Ooh.
You planted that in my brain. Shout out to Timmy Dub.
We have not spoken about that. Big Timmy Dub almost deserves the 3 votes this week because he's talked a lot about the hashtag 75. Every time we hold the opposition to 75 points or under, it's the magic number. We're going to get the dub. We do it again this week, and all of a sudden, we're in the chocolates, and we're talking about not only a good win, but a good performance. Is that something you just want to run back, Lockie?
I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, mate. I think, So I'll call that, because that's a very tangible what do you want to see. And, if they score less than 75 and we lose, then it'll be Timmy Dub that's in the firing line. So it's good to take the firing line off us for once.
No, I really do like that. I think probably my what do you want to see is they're very simple this week. The performance against Gold Coast really nailed a lot of the carryover of those big components. So it's so simple, but I want to see us continue with trying different things around the ball. And you're looking at Port, and they've got such a great midfield, and there's a lot of depth to it as well. You're looking at absolute match winners, like your, my God, Butters, your Rosies are there as well. Wines, Boak as your big bodies. You've got Horn Francis. Like, they've got plenty of players in there that can hurt you in a multitude of ways. They're kind of a bit more balanced in a way like us, which will be an interesting matchup because those bigger bodies, we can match them there. It might just be about, can we go the other way with them if guys like Butters and Rosie start to get a hold of us? So I want to see Elijah Hollins continue. I want to see what a Chincotta can do in stifling their ball movement. And then on top of that, does Zach Williams continue to offer little elements there? How are we approaching this game, knowing what we know about the opposition and trying to overcome their strengths for once? Because it worked in the Melbourne game to an extent. It didn't work in the Sydney. It's worked again in the Gold Coast. Can that coaching piece be a tick for us at the end of the game?
Such a confusing situation that we're in right now. I just so want us to see us build on this on the Gold Coast performance. Like, if you just take the win-loss out of the equation, I just hope it wasn't, one step forward, 2 steps back with what we see this week. Like, as you said, it wasn't perfect, and I felt like I was particularly frustrated in the first half with some inside 50 decision making when it felt like we just moved the ball from defense to our half forward line so well and then let ourselves down with decision making. I hope that is an element that we can build on, because that just almost feels like the missing piece of the puzzle. That's the part that we've just never fully nailed. Like how do we like Charlie still managed to keep 4 goals and we're still just not getting it to him in the optimal way. How can we improve on that this week?
Yeah, I like that. And I think there's that, hopefully a guy like Zach Williams, he doesn't have to kick 4 this week, but just continues to create that role for himself and others around him continue to improve. It's clearly something that forward line needs to grow, and the way we move the ball needs to be better. Guys like Sam Walsh just stop picking out the only defender of the opposition that's open in space, ready to stop things. Like, I don't necessarily think Mac Andrew was playing exceptionally well. It felt like we were making him play good football. Like, he was doing some good things, but everything we were doing wasn't working. So I like that point. And probably my other what you want to see is just us being able to handle the pressure that is applied from the opposition. Gold Coast pressure was fine, but it wasn't like we've seen the best teams in the competition bring in. I'm having a look at some of the stats that Port are absolutely leading at the moment. And right now, they are the number 1 team for tackles in the competition. And they're the number 1 team for tackles inside 50. They're the only ones above us as far as tackles inside 50. So they're going to really bring that front half pressure. Our back line is something we're pretty proud of and we think that can work really well. But something that we've struggled with is moving the ball out of D50, that transition game. All of a sudden, we're saying how good it is that we've got the one ruck in there and that's the solution to the problem. It's going to get really tested this week, because that's what Port do really well. They're not a team that has to get the ball a lot. You look at, contested and uncontested possessions. They're kind of middle of the road, but inside 50s, Lockie, they're number 3. They get the ball in there a lot. They have a lot of pressure. How are we going to deal with that? I hope we've got a plan. I hope we see us not go back to that fumble. All of a sudden, we're dropping marks. The ball movement is stifled and we're slow moving it from D50. It's a big challenge against a really good opposition. So it's about time that we do sort this out. Another one, mate, they're the number 1 marks for inside 50 as well. So they're not only getting it in there, but they're getting it in there smartly, probably because of some of those repeat entries, we're turning the ball over under pressure. They're getting better looks. We know that even against Gold Coast, we probably gave them really easy looks. It was why they were still in the game. They were kicking straight from simple opportunities. We've just got to be strong and we've got to be better.
Couldn't have said it better myself, mate. I think we're going to get that Timmy dub.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about when you're talking about Port Adelaide and you're talking about Carlton this week?
I don't know why I'm feeling so confident, mate. I'm delusional.
I guess the only thing is, if it doesn't happen for us, if we don't win this game, because it's another one of those big tests, we probably haven't won a lot of those big moments that we haven't beaten, Sydney. We didn't beat Geelong. We didn't beat Collingwood. We did get over the line against Melbourne, but and GWS, but how many of those big scalps have we gotten? It seems like we're kind of more middle of the road with things right now as far as those top 8 teams are concerned. We've beaten a team at Adelaide Oval, but it wasn't an Adelaide-based team. So I still have that as something we need to overcome. How big is this scalp, and what would you, I guess, take away if we aren't able to get the win?
I appreciate trying to take a step back from this one. Like last week, we looked at this run up to the bye and thought, what are we expecting? What do we hope to see? I'm going to try and not overreact to this performance because we know the kind of challenge that we're going into here. So, like I said, I felt like this last week against Gold Coast, leading into it, was more defining than this one. I know people want to stamp this game as well, if we win this one, then we're genuine contender, and if we don't, then we're not. I'm not getting that vibe this week. How I was feeling last week, where it's like, if we lose to Gold Coast, I'm hanging up the towel. So I'm not going to overreact to a loss this week if it comes, even though, like I said, I'm feeling confident.
I'll be interested to see. We'll try and keep you and hold you to account on
you
that
can
one
clip
this time next week. We'll clip it when you have an absolute meltdown, because I'm going to go one step further with you and say something that absolutely makes no sense. I would say, because I mean, we already think we're a contender here, so that's fine. But I think if you beat Port in Port, it's definitely a bit more of a statement piece that we do still require right now. So I would say it definitely makes us a lot more of a contender, but you reverse it. I would say if we lose this, as long as it's not a loss like a Sydney game, we're still contenders in my eyes. I don't think it'll be as detrimental because it's still over there. Right. But I mean, this is a Port team that they're not in the best form. They had a really struggling close win against Hawthorn, miraculous out of nowhere. They're beatable. We just have to show our best. So I'm very excited to see what Carlton steps up to the plate and to see what kind of performance we do get out of the Blues. But yes, drop all your predictions, all your thoughts, all your what do you want to see in the comments below, and let us know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. But before we wrap this up, before we let you all go, we've got to hit one of the mainstays of the Navy Blue Corner. We had a double induction last week. Who knows? Could we do it again? Let's roll the greatest sting in the game. It's the Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the ceremony of ceremonies. Straighten your tie, adjust your monocle, and raise a pinky for the Navy Blue Corner Hall of Fame. That's right, it's the Hall of Fame. It is the most prestigious event in all of AFL podcasting, not just Carlton podcasting here. So I hope you've all got your ties on. Doesn't matter if you're not in the full suit. It's just the tie that matters, or monocle, either one. If someone's still got a monocle in 2024, you have won this in my books. We've had some good inductees so far this year. Maybe we'll need to revisit this and have a bigger ceremony at the end of the year to recap them all. But I went big a few weeks ago. You matched it last week. I'm excited to see where we go. And I'm going to throw you onto the podium to begin, Lockie, because this is a prestigious event. And I want to know who or what you are inducting into the Hall of Fame this week.
Well, see, I had my nomination prepared, and it's rare that this happens, but I feel like something that has come up during this episode has to be inducted. And you probably know what I'm saying, because...
Feel free to give a bit of an honourable mention then, because I'm happy to throw those in. Like they do at the, all those big award shows where they have like the four Brady Bunch like squares, and they throw out all the losers who don't get it, and you get to see the bitter disappointment on their faces. This can be one of those people right now. So yeah, throw your what do you call it? I just lost the word there, Lockie. Honorable mention. Throw that out there, and then obviously the one you're inducting. Sorry, I'm playing with my tie far too much so far. I'm out of focus.
Shout out to your first ever band as well. I didn't think the honourable mention was getting a call up on this. It actually probably is fitting that this is an honourable mention and not in, because I should have brought it up last week, but we had the whole simulcasting thing last week. And I was going to say this is a humble brag, but it isn't. It's just a full brag, because my Supercoach team, mate.
Oh yes, here we go.
We're not flying as much as we were last week, but I thought it was worth bringing up, because last week I was sitting 19th overall, but more importantly, the number one Carlton supporter. You know how it has, like you say, which team you support, and then it shows you where in your club you're sitting. And I was sitting first. And I'm very sad to mention that now I am sitting second. So if you are out there and you are the number one Carlton supporter, let us know. Give me some tips. But the update is I'm 23rd now. So the hunt for the 50K lives on.
God, this is
That's
incredible. Yeah, look, my Supercoach abilities are not amazing. So I love that I get to live vicariously through you like a failed athlete dad gets to live it through their child. And I feel like that's what I'm going to be. So I'm probably going to be pretty hard on you, going to be very mean and abusive probably from the sidelines, yelling at every trade that you do. But yeah, this deserves a big mention on the podcast because we're very big Supercoach fans here. So the fact that Lockie... he's not just in like the top 1,000, which I think would be a massive achievement for either one of us. He's genuinely in the hunt to win this. And I've been here before as someone watching someone I know hunt this down. Now, the last time that happened was in our year 12 year, and the great man, Aidan Potter, was able to bring home
Shout out.
Hopefully it can happen again. Maybe we've got to get Leckdog on board. We've got to get Big Potter on board. As far as a couple of brains trust, we can each week throw out potential trades to them. It'll be interesting whether we need to make this a weekly segment and figure out how you're going, what trades and moves you're going to make. But I'm worried, Lockie, that number one current ranked Carlton fan is listening. They're going to steal your moves. Maybe it's not the play to let this go out, but maybe we need to get their advice on, bring them on as guests, ask them some questions, take home some notes,
collaborate,
and reconvene the week after and see how you're performing. But no, this is a massive achievement. Oh, I absolutely love it, Lockie. You're killing it.
Oh, mate, I really thought that I was going to get some, some negativity from you bringing this up. So I really appreciate all that. So we can't go into too much detail, but we've already talked about it. I think Timmy Dubs, #75, deserves a place in the Hall of Fame. Because as you were talking before, going on your little rants as you tend to do, I was going back and looking at that 75. It never fails. It never fails. So I want us to continue hanging our coat on that and going, if that's all we need to do, nothing matters. If Port don't kick 75, we've won.
This is incredible. This is the first podcast listener getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So look, it can happen. And that's the magic of this segment. Anyone or anything can get inducted. Thank God he's getting inducted for something positive. I'd hate for the first inductee to be someone sent Lockie death threats over bringing in someone on Supercoach and costing everyone the happiness, which probably be me, to be honest, sending those across to you. So, no, I think that's incredible. 100% strike rate. Timmy Dub and your #75. Let's all cheer that along.
Unbelievable.
And every week now,
what do you
I'll give an honourable mention because I was tossing up between these. And I know the one I'm definitely inducting. It was my first option, and I'm going to stick with it. But the honourable mention goes to Mitch McGovern. Maybe we've spoken about this before, but I can't recall seeing the young fella, the young son he has wearing the jumper with the brackets written on there. That is absolutely beautiful. He doesn't said like my dad or anything like that. It's just brackets, which I think is perfect. Shout out to Gov on that one. But no, this is a bit more of a story time that we like in the Hall of Fame.
You love a story.
Those who are long-time listeners, long-time fans of the Hall of Fame will know that Marvel Stadium has had some incidents in the past. Now, Lockie, it is Marvel Stadium-esque again this week. We were there.
Oh, no.
Now, we arrive into this marvel of a stadium. No pun intended there. It just happened. But they never know what to do with the roof, Lockie. It's open. It's shut. It's open during the day, but it's shut when we play. Who knows what's going on? But I arrive to my seat. This time, no portaloos, but go to sit down. They've obviously had the roof open potentially for the last month. I don't know, but my seat, head to toe, covered, thick covering, bird shit everywhere, Lockie. Now, I'm wearing some new jeans. I haven't got much wear out of them. Lovely light blue. I'm thinking, oh no, Lockie, I'm going to be covered in bird shit. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. What do? I don't have anything on me. I'm at the footy. I've got my water bottle, but I'm like, I don't have anything to wipe. Do I have to go to the toilet? Everything is running through my head in like, do I have to find new seats? This is ridiculous. And then, mate, I told you the roof was closed, but somehow from the heavens, my guardian angel has just descended into Marvel Stadium. The lovely lady next to us who has been there each and every single week, rain, hail, or shine, she is there with the family, some of the most lovely people ever. They need to be inducted into the Hall of Fame because before I even have to think about a solution. We did not talk to them. I didn't say out loud, oh my God, look at all this bird shit. They just saw the way I looked at my chair. They knew, and they offered help and guidance. They said, Ian.
Wow.
Well, they didn't say Ian. They don't know my name, but who knows? They said, buddy, champ, would you like a serviette? Would you like something to wipe? We've got some wipes. We've got some wipes to take that bird poo. We cannot have Carlton fans sitting in the bird poo. And, mate, this wasn't just some sort of budget reject shop baby wipe. This is one for the ladies or those that know the feminine products. This was a makeup wipe, Lockie. You don't just give those away. They're an expensive product. They don't just go out to anyone. So Hall of Fame inductee is the lovely lady in the family next to me that offered up a makeup wipe to wipe down the chair that was absolutely ridden and caked with bird shit. One of the worst things to see. And I'm like, what are they doing? Just keep the roof closed. We wouldn't have this problem. Who would have thought Marvel Stadium are trying to kill me again? But this time, I've got backup.
Wow, mate. Shout out to your storytelling ability there too, because such a vivid image of that whole plot was in my head. Particularly just like the most immaculately clean thousands of seats, and then just this one seat, which is just, there is just no damage anywhere else except for this one chair. So shout out to them.
Obviously, I'm doing something right, because a little bit later, I noticed there was someone a couple seats in front of us, still a Carlton supporter, but they were making a bit of a vocal fuss, and maybe this is what let them down. I hadn't verbally said anything. There was just a look towards me in the chair. This lady's going, oh, there's bird shit all over me chair, which is fair enough. That's the general normal reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get a makeup wipe. So maybe I'm doing something right at the footy. Who knows?
Well, I'm going to put a challenge to you, mate, and this is going to be a little bit of a call out to you, because you're blessed to be able to go to the footy right now, and you get to have all these Hall of Fame experiences there, where I'm over here stuck on the other side of the globe. Your last two Hall of Fames from the footy, this and obviously the thieving young one, yes. Both times you did not go up to them and say, hey, I need to know your name because this is going to be my Hall of Fame. So next time that we get a Hall of Fame from you, from the footy, I want to know, I want you to be able to present. It was Jeanette with the makeup wipe, etc.
I think that's acceptable. Almost in a way that I'm not allowed to bring something to the table, talking about a human being, unless I've got a name. I absolutely love that, Lockie. But if you've come up with any crazy stories, any stupid things that have happened to you this week around the footy, you picked up anything, doesn't even have to be Carlton related, drop it in the comments. It's something we want to get going, as far as not just something we bring to the table, but if there's a great one from the listeners, from the viewers, we can induct that as well. But look, that is basically going to wrap this episode up here. It's been a long one. Look, the mid-season draft has come and gone. We unfortunately have to record these ones due to time differences beforehand. So I'm sure, as you're probably watching this, we've picked up someone and you're yelling, why aren't you talking about the fact we've picked up the next bloody Chris Judd? Well, unfortunately, this is pre-recorded, but we will be back here next week to not only talk about who we've selected and go through it all, but we'll be here to talk about a massive win against Port. Look at us. We'll be the bloody number one contender. Sorry, Lockie, he's trying to cut me off here. What would you like to add while I'm giving one of the famous rev-ups?
I hate to interrupt you, rev-up, but I have to practice what I preach and say that they're in Supers. There was 8 people that moved above me this week. One of them, his team's name is Wheat Bix.
Ooh, I like that name.
Wheat Bix. I think he's the blue man. I think he's the one in first. So shout out to David and Wheat Bix.
Well, look, honestly, we're running late anyway, so let's continue it. I just want to say the one thing I will grill you on, Lockie, is, and maybe this is my issue, I tend to put maybe a little bit too much effort into team names and things like that rather than the squad. And I'll be honest, my team name this year is really shit, but can you just let the people know your team name and the amount of imagination that you've put into it this year? Because I think you might have struggled. You might have had to take some annual leave just to figure out what the team name should be called. Lockie, just for the people listening.
That's such a good call. And I will say that there comes a point in the season where I think Supercoach doesn't let you change the name. It has to be in like the first 3 weeks or something, because they got to a stage where I'm like, Lid's team is probably not going to come.
Not it. It's probably not it. You can't win. If you bring home the bloody $50,000,
you're so right.
At the end of the season, they're like, and the winner is Lid's team. That may be the worst thing of all time.
Oh, you're so right.
It's disappointing. I expect a little bit more from you, but maybe again, this is the issue. I spend too much time on a team name.
I focus on results
and can't do it. Yeah, disappointing.
Yeah.
But no, that's
a very valid call out, though.
Everyone, maybe we have to come up as a collective for next season. Think of a good team name, good Carlton AFL themed name for Lockie's Supercoach team. I'd like that idea.
To go back. We need to go back to the collective Navy Blue Corner team next season as well. I've been missing that this year.
Absolutely. But that is going to wrap things up. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you've listened right now and you wanted to know, maybe we have selected someone that Ian has spoken about, the mid-season draft preview episode is up on our own YouTube and up on podcast. So hopefully you've listened to that and we've selected one of the players I've put there. So you've got a bit of information. But I just hope we absolutely go out there and pump Port Adelaide. Get that final non-asterisked win at Adelaide Oval. Up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.